This segment is going to be dedicated to the places inside Los Olivos, the town where you sort of can walk from one place to the next, enjoy your tasting, sometimes eat something in the place next door, get it delivered while you're tasting, and sort of don't have to go back to your car while you're doing the whole thing. So these three wineries we stopped at after Melville and Zaca Mesa. They're Samsara on the right, the Joy Fantastic, who make Holus Bolus and Tensley, whom we've discussed in the past. We visited them. Those last two I visited also last year. So Samsara has an interesting story behind it. We're going to get into that when we talk about the wines specifically, and it's right in town. Holus Bolus is across the street. As you know, I really like these guys. This is what got me going last year because of what their self-rooted, own root, Syrah that they make. And I was looking for something like that. They have this incredible new Pinot made with a California heritage clone, Pinot clone. So I thought that was very interesting. Even though it's very expensive, I thought it's worth checking out. And Tensley, they make these incredible Syrahs. And I love these magnums, as we know, because they're just very festive, very rich, and they really please everybody. The two magnums that they make, the OGT and the BMT. These are initials of some of their kids. OGT is 100% Syrah from 3 different vineyards, and then BGT has its Syrah Grenache, BMT, sorry. We'll talk a little bit about this when we get to that with the pictures. Here we go. Samsara was the first one we stopped at in Los Olivos in the afternoon. We had an appointment, so it wasn't a walk-in. It's just this really cute little house. As you can see, right in town, you can sit outside. This is my friend Leon. You're gonna see, and you probably have already seen a lot of him and his wives in these pictures. And I'll show you the inside in a bit. And there's other houses next door. Right next door, there's also another place where you can order some pizza. So we were served the pizza, as you can see in the box, as we were sitting there. And so it's just really well integrated in the streetscape, and you feel like you're just really browsing from one place to the next. We even had the dog with us. As you can see, it was just great being outside. But I did want to check out the inside because often they have very interesting sort of decor, and that was really not disappointing at all. You can see this, it's just this really nice sort of very welcoming room, people at the bar being able to look up close. There was only one helper. You can see the lady with the hat. We had very interesting and challenging conversations, so it was kind of fun, but it was tough for her to keep up with the crowd. But that it works. You have to kind of allow for that time, maybe an hour per tasting, so you can allow for all that. Anyway, so this is the tasting here. This is what we tasted, the 5 wines, starting from the bottom. I'm not sure you're going to see the whole thing. There's a Zotovich Vineyard Syrah. Then there's the 2 Pinots, Rancho La Vigna, the Inspiration Pinot Noir, which is a new sort of cuvée for them. It's a bit lighter weight, it's a bit cheaper. And the Rosé, which is becoming more and more common in the area, and a Chardonnay, which basically we started with a Chardonnay. The Chardonnay was quite good. It was really an interesting mix of sharp acidity, but also with the buttery notes coming from the malolactic fermentation. And I'm sort of contrasting this with what we saw at Melville, where they do not allow for malolactic fermentation, and they use whole cluster, which is, we'll talk about that later. The Inspiration Pinot is a bit fizzy, very light, and I think that's the attempt here to be into that. The Rosé, I really didn't get into it, so I can't comment on that. The Pinot Vigna is sort of a step up from the other one. It's really one of their single vineyard Pinots that is sort of more upscale, and the prices reflect that. The Zotovich Syrah was a nice Syrah, but it didn't really strike me. I had a list of wines I really wanted to taste with her, and that I had sort of checked out some interesting, Syrahs, which were sort of a different kind of fermentation, some single vineyard Pinots, but a lot of the stuff on the was not on the list, which is kind of very disappointing in that particular space. Some of the other spaces you get to taste more stuff, but the Radian Pinot was something I really wanted to taste. I ended up tasting it, and I did buy a couple of bottles. The thing about Samsara is interesting is it was started maybe 20 years ago by Ron Melville's son, who went on to do his own thing, like a lot of people, younger kids do, generation sort of wise. He went to India. He studied some stuff there. He came up with a name. Of Samsara. Came back to Los Olivos, created his estate, and then recently, basically, his dad called him back and said, "Listen, you need to come back to the family business and help me out." So Chad is now the winemaker at Melville, and the Samsara has remained, but you can tell that their specialty is these Pinots, and I was just actually very happy with the Radian, and I bought those two bottles that you see here. This is a 2019. I actually found it still quite restrained, but really full of potential. It's made 100% whole cluster with 50% neutral oak, and really it's got sort of more presence, more heftiness, and I thought that would be something that I would really enjoy down the road. Next was Holus Bolus, whom I visited with last year. If you recall, I really like the way they do things, and they have this sort of purity and directness of fruit, both in the Syrah and the Pinot, that I was very, very attracted to. They have a new wine called the Swan Heritage Clone Pinot Noir. It is a heritage clone from California, and they make a really expensive wine out of it, but I figured I should really check it out. So we went in there, as you can see, it's a reasonably small room, but and I only tasted the Swan, and I really liked it. It came out of a Coravin sort of setup, so it was still very closed, but it just had this sort of intensity that and the very light color that they're known for, that I really thought I would enjoy. If you see on the wall, that's the vineyard where one section is planted to this clone. This is named after Joseph Swan, who pioneered the use of this clone in Sonoma Valley in the mid-20th century. Before him, the legend has it that the cuttings came from Paul Masson's vineyard, that in turn had come, again, according to the legend, from La Romanée-Conti in France. So very interesting story at the least. It has become a heritage clone in California, and it's used by actually several winemakers, both in Sonoma and in the Central Coast. Of course, I bought a couple of bottles. It's 2020. It's their first vintage. I think these guys are going to have to wait quite a bit before we can enjoy them, so we see what happens. Next and last on the wine front was Tensley. Again, I visited them last year too, and I really like the Syrah that's made there, and we discussed it last year. It's a combination of intensity but approachability, but at the same time depth that is going to continue to develop. What I really like about them is they also make these wonderful magnums. It's one of the few vineyards that actually make magnums in a way that you can actually find them and buy them for some of their best wines. And I'm a fan of these magnums, the OGT and the BMT. OGT is 100% Syrah, and it's from three vineyards, the Thompson, the Colson, and the Tensley vineyards, and the mix comes off quite well. The BMT has, I think, 75% Syrah, 25% Grenache. Different vineyards. It's the Rodney vineyard on the Syrah that they actually do a swap with Rodney on some of their grapes. But it's also a really beautiful wine. So, and as you can see in the back, this is a winery, again, as I said before, that really makes enough magnums. I mean, they don't make a ton, but they make enough magnums that you can actually find that there and enjoy it. So I got the two magnums. These are 2021. I think they're going to sit in the cellar again for a while. And in the meantime, I will continue to try to find some of the older magnums so I can enjoy them right away. Don't get me wrong, though. As I said earlier, these Tensley wines are really good today. We tasted the OGT 2021 in the tasting room, and Lyon really loved it, and he really wanted to see if they have it in a regular bottle, because that's the kind of size he likes, but they didn't. But that tells you how good this stuff is right now. Well, here we come to the end of the day with this dinner at the Los Olivos Wine Merchant Cafe, made famous by the movie Sideways. It's very convenient. It's right there in the middle of all this, and just interesting, variety of food. But what's even more interesting, just to browse, is that amazing wine collection they have, both in the store to buy and take home, or drink in the restaurant, and online, or sort of this wine list, a huge wine list that they have. They can't even print anymore, so you have to check it out online. So that was sort of the closing, if you want, a note on our day in Los Olivos. So all in all, a really nice day. It was a very long day for me here from the South Bay area. It's a 3-hour drive up there and then back, so got up at 6 in the morning, but it was worth it, because otherwise you have to deal with the logistics of spending a night and spending even more time. So 5 properties in one day, all very enjoyable. Some of them were specific hit and runs because I knew what I was looking for, like Tensley and Holus Bolus, and some of them, like the other 3, was really a discovery, so more in-depth discussion and tasting of the wines. And so these trips to me have become more of almost like a shopping trip. If you know what you want, and these are things that you want to taste maybe again for sure, but you also want to be able to get them there because they're not easy to find elsewhere, or they're made in limited editions, or they only sell them to club members, and you don't want to be a club member, but you think if you show up there, which is kind of what happened, then it's worth a trip. You make a trip, you buy whatever you're going to buy, and then maybe a year later you got to go back and buy more of the stuff. So we have the full experience, the full Sideways experience, if you want, because Los Olivos, as you recall, was the town in the Sideways movies. And then we even had dinner, as you saw in the picture, at that restaurant from Sideways, the wine merchant, Los Olivos Wine Merchant Cafe. It wasn't necessarily special food, but as you see, the wine collection there is amazing, so it's kind of nice to browse, even though you probably won't be drinking any after a day like that. But it's kind of nice to browse and be in that sort of atmosphere of people who love wine and the food that goes with it. Anyway, I'll probably do this again in another year or 2, and I'm sure it's going to always be the same amount of fun. Thanks for listening, and see you soon.